Another year, another list of incredible gaming experiences. On the positive side of things, 2024 has been an absolute titan of a year when it comes to quality game releases. Today we'll be looking at and going through my top 10 favourites that I've discovered from 2024. Just a few things I'd like to say before getting into this. Firstly, this list will include both new releases from this year alongside games that I played for the first time that aren't from 2024. This is since at the end of the day, everyone's gaming journey is unique and keeping up with the classics is just as important as following what's new. No one's played everything. Another rule is that there will be no JRPGs in this video, and that's because my previous upload already went over what I would consider the very greatest JRPGs that I played this year. This top 10 is a follow up to that video, so feel free to check it out if you'd like. One last thing is that for every game on this list here, I have finished and reached the credits to, but they will be spoiler free. And with all that out of the way, let's get started with number 10. Kicking off this list, we have Sonic X Shadow Generations, or more accurately would be the Shadow Generations aspect of the game. Whilst the original 2011 title is still as good as it's ever been, I was way more interested to see what Sonic Team was cooking for this new campaign following its hype cycle alongside the Year of Shadow Sega was calling it to tie in with this release and the new movie. I can safely say Shadow Generations truly delivered. Ever since Frontiers, regardless of your thoughts of it, Sonic Team really feels like it's got its confidence back when it comes to writing stories and characters. Shadow Generations is like seeing that one friend you got along with in school who was only ever being themselves but got bullied for it.
To admit that this was never really a great franchise, and that we keep trying to find this thing that was never really actually there.
Sonic was never good.
Yeah.
Picture it, years later you see them try to sanitize what made them special, only for them to realize that they were alright to begin with and it was the people around them who were wrong. What I'm trying to say is that Sonic games finally have their stories back and no longer have to confirm to YouTubers or IGN calling them cringe. The actual game itself is a big shake-up from Generations. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's very similar to Bowser's Fury in both scope and overworld design. I have no complaints for this campaign. Granted it's a little short, but it's about the length of Generations, so for Sonic standards it's the right runtime. Seeing old levels alongside some unexpected boss returns was an incredible surprise from the perspective of someone who grew up with this series. This release really shows a shift in how Sonic Team approaches making games, and I genuinely can't wait to see where it takes us next. Here's hoping we get a remaster of Unleashed someday. It kinda needs it the most. Next up on this list is a game I didn't think I'd enjoy at first but had me surprised by its rich narrative and world design. That being the 2018 mega hit Red Dead Redemption 2. This one's hard not to spoil, but it was a big push for me personally to want to talk about gaming more. The impact from this title really sparked my interest to want to make videos in the first place. It also allowed me to connect more with others and discover what makes this hobby so incredible. There's a huge chance that you'll never experience all that there is to see from this title. This is due to just how polished and dense this game is. So many unique small interactions are from the vast amount of optional dialogue between campers and side quests. It really sells you on the idea that this is a living, breathing world. Red Dead Redemption 2's premise of being about a group of bandits in the Wild West as the age of cowboys is dying out is an incredible story. You really get the idea that these characters could never adapt to modern society, and in a way, despite their flaws, the writers made every member extremely empathetic regardless of their actual moral compass. It's crazy from a modern AAA game, but there is a certain human touch to the downfall of these characters that makes them really likable despite their flaws. In a way, it really reminded me of Mice and Men. If you're familiar with that old school book, they have a lot in common, mostly when it comes to the idea of being a victim of circumstance and just growing up in an era that wasn't known for being great. I'm glad I finally got around to seeing what's so special about this title, but I have to move on or I'll be going on about it all day. Next at number 8 we have Emio the Smiling Man. This is such an out there release from Nintendo. A sequel to an NES game series that the West only recently got acquainted with through the Switch remakes. If you like visual novels, Emio is such a no-brainer. What sets it aside to me is how it constantly bottles itself up for its runtime with its mysteries, only to have what I would consider one of the most out there narrative payoffs to a game. I streamed this to a friend and it had me crying by the credits. It touches on subject matter that you'd never expect from a Nintendo game or even any video game company for that matter. The art style and characters can be equally fun at times, which really hits a good contrast with the more heavier moments. It's quite short for its genre, visual novel length wise, but leaves you feeling its impact for a good while afterwards. I was up late just thinking about its ending. Moving on to something a little more light-hearted, we have the first game I beat this year, that being Yakuza 0. I finally got into the Yakuza series this year, and 0 is an incredible entry point. It's a prequel game and sets up the events and origin stories for its main cast of characters. The whole thing is set up like a TV drama as you change between Kiryu's and Majima's perspective throughout the narrative. Switching between combat styles felt great gameplay wise. On top of that, there's also the vast amount of side content and mini games that the series is known for. The story just keeps heightening the stakes as you see the inside of the Yakuza's drama as you fight each antagonist up the chain of command. I will say though, later games in my opinion kinda sour the experience of 0 if you play them in chronological order like I did, since a lot of what I thought was unique to this game is actually introduced in previous entries. I do think though that Zero is the very best of the series that I played so far. Regardless of these minor criticisms, Yakuza 0 is well worth the experience and is the perfect entry point into this series. At number 6, we have another beloved classic that I finally got around to playing this year, that being Ghost Trick. Part visual novel, part puzzle game, Ghost Trick is an incredibly unique experience. The premise of playing as a soul as you piece together how you originally died really sets Ghost Trick apart alongside its amazing stylized visuals and soundtrack. One thing that stuck with me a lot with Ghost Trick is how it's a game about how love can transcend any form. You literally turn into objects in order to reach your goal. I'd hate to spoil this experience, but it is a Capcom title, which means it goes on sale all the time and it's well worth giving a shot. Ghost Trick really is an incredible game that you won't find anything similar to. I really have no complaints here, and given its easy to spoil nature, I'll have to move on, but trust me, going into this one blind is well worth it. One genre I've been trying to get more into are horror games. Last year I played the more mainstream titles like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, but now I've been looking into the more obscure side of what this genre has to offer. Haunting Grounds is exactly that, a forgotten hidden gem which released during what many will consider the golden age for the genre back on the PlayStation 2. What I loved most about this game is just how defenseless you are. Armed with just your dog and wits, you have to be really careful when it comes to avoiding each of the stalker enemies that will pursue you once alerted. It's a really unique experience and one I feel is missing in the modern horror gaming scene and actually feels scary at times. I miss the feeling of actually being vulnerable and scared over what most modern games do, where you're armed with some sort of weapon, which is usually a gun. Just the simple act of having a weapon could really change how these games are designed, because I'm just always going to be thinking of attacking the threat, whereas here you're forced to outmaneuver them, which can make interacting with the stalker enemies much more interesting at times. I really prefer this approach, but once again there really isn't anything like it in the modern horror scene outside of these obscure forgotten PS2 titles of the past. This is what I point to when people want to know what makes good horror for a video game and how we've only really scratched the surface of what's possible for this genre. I'd love to mention the game's actual story, but if I'm being completely honest, this story is so messed up I doubt I can even mention it on YouTube. If you're familiar with that one Incredibles meme, it's that kind of thing, but needless to say, its use of horror fits the tone, since I don't think you could write this kind of story outside of the horror genre given its subject matter, which is fitting in a messed up kind of way. Regardless, Haunting Grounds or Dementia in Japan would make for a great video idea to attempt someday. I highly recommend seeking this forgotten horror game out if you have the means both hardware wise and mentally. Moving on to the much needed colourful world of Nintendo, at number 4 we have The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. A lot of people were skeptical about this title at first. Personally, I was just happy seeing Zelda be the main character of this game outside of that one time.
How about a kiss for luck?
You've got to be kidding.
Also, finally, a brand new 2D entry after A Link Between Worlds, which is a gameplay style I've really come to miss over the course of its absence. I actually 100%ed this title. It really took me back to the past whilst feeling like something new, a perfect blend of modern and classic Zelda level design. Having Zelda as the main character isn't just an aesthetic change. Gameplay wise, it's kinda like Kirby or Mario Odyssey, with how you can take your opponent's abilities and use them to your advantage. But where Echoes of Wisdom differs is in its puzzles. Like the open world games, you can tackle puzzles in different ways, but unlike those games, the level design felt more linear, which I personally prefer in this series. Also, a small detail, but the story for this game is great. Avoiding spoilers, it actually acknowledges the series canon. I know this is beyond the scope of this video, but as someone who is heavily invested in the series' roots and stories, it felt really nice seeing them be acknowledged again. Also, since Link is no longer the lead, he has a very unique dynamic in this game and is acknowledged more by NPCs, which is a neat little detail. I really hope we see more games where Zelda takes a lead role, since Echoes of Wisdom really shows the potential of what they can make when they focus on the Triforce of Wisdom. At number 3, we have an indie game that completely caught me off guard when I first played it early this year. Void Stranger, which came out in 2023 and is the definition of underrated. I did a video on this game and similar to Red Dead 2, it was a huge influence for making me want to create content talking about these kinds of experiences. All I can say about Void Stranger is just don't give up. This game is incredibly unique and goes in all sorts of directions. Once again, like previous titles, the story is incredible here. The pixel art and monocolor palette alongside the straightforward gameplay loop of progressing through each floor as you delve deeper into the void really gives this game an easy to pick up but incredibly hard to master vibe. I can't stress just how difficult yet satisfying this game is. The void just does something to you. I did an indie game video featuring this game a few months back if you'd like to hear more about this incredibly overlooked title. I'm telling you, with the right amount of following, this game could reach the popularity of indie giants like Undertale. It really is that special, and the lore and characters are just as likeable here than with the best of games. I have no complaints for this one. The experience can get frustrating at times, but similar to a difficult game, it's all intentional. If you can think it using the game's mechanics, the designer has already coded it in, Voice Ranger really is an experience unlike no other. Coming in at number 2, we have this year's Game of the Year winner, Astrobot, a 3D platformer winning Game of the Year. What a time to be alive. I really can't say what's not already been said on this one. Every level is unique and proves that realism is nothing when it comes to pure creativity and fun. Astrobot is a reminder of what gaming was always about, having a good time. Being reminded of Sony's history was also a joy. I can only hope that this game can sit as a reminder to Sony that we want more light-hearted gaming experiences like this. I also liked how despite being casual friendly, some of the later levels really increase the difficulty, which if you like this genre will feel great as you are pushed to your limits, and it really feels like you've mastered this game by 100% completion. I'm also just really impressed with the free updates that this title has been getting. The levels were the same quality as the base game, and that's saying something. Astrobot is easily the best game to come out of PlayStation Studios this console generation and is well worth playing. But that begs the question, what could possibly be at number 1 for the best game that I played this year? Never underestimate what titles you've missed. You should always look deeper to find experiences that might have missed you when they first came along. God Hand is the antithesis of this fact and is the best thing ever made. A big focus on this list has been narratives in gaming, while God Hand is just pure gameplay and it's some of the best you'll ever experience. This game's greatness is too much for this list. It's probably the easiest game I can talk about since I can just show gameplay and the whole thing just speaks for itself. Every hit, every combo, every juggle you feel the impact of, and on the same level as something like Doom, you feel pure adrenaline and satisfaction pulling it off no matter how many times you've done it. I'm so glad I decided to play this title, and once again it should be a reminder that looking back at games is just as important as keeping up with modern releases. Play God Hand if you have the means, you won't regret it, and I could easily talk about this game forever. Also, Clover Studios are back from the dead, so here's hoping we can get a sequel or at the very least a modern day port. But this is not the end of this video, we still have one last thing to address. That's right, this is actually a top 20 list, and what I'm going to do here is combine my last video with this one to give the true final form of my top 20 games that I played in 2024. Here it goes, starting at 20, we have Visions of Mana, followed by Sonic X Shadow Generation, Sakura Wars, Red Dead Redemption 2, Emio the Smiling Man, Unicorn Overlord, Tales of Symphonia is at number 14, then we have Yakuza 0, followed by Ghost Trick, Atelier Sophie 2, The Alchemist of the Mysterious Dream, then Haunting Grounds at number 10. At 9 we have Dragon Quest 8, followed by The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Metaphor Refantasio, Voice Stranger, then at 5 we have Trails Through Daybreak. We have at number 4 Astrobot, at number 3 Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, at number 2 Valkyrie Profile 2 Sumeria, and the giant of this list that surprised me the most, we have God Hand at number 1. And that does it for this unconventional top 10 list, which is actually a top 20 list, but I'm curious, what was your favourite games of this year? Please let me know. Also, any feedback on this video would be appreciated. Thanks for watching and have a happy new year.